Outside the dilapidated Gwangyang City Hall, Kim Soho and others were seen standing there with a middle-aged couple. The middle-aged couple then gave Kim Soho a large parcel in their hands, and when they opened the large parcel, Na-yeon's eyes then lit up when she saw a lot of food and various fresh vegetables inside. The middle-aged man smiled at their joy. He said that this was their way of thanking them for driving away Asura. Even though he said so, but Soho was still hesitant. He asked, "Are you sure you will give us this much gift?" Hearing his hesitation, in a grateful tone, the middle-aged man replied, "Of course, because thanks to you, our people are finally free from the tyranny of Asura. You don't know how far he tortured us for that damn mana crystal, so we are really grateful." Hearing that, Soho did not hesitate anymore and happily accepted their gift. A middle-aged woman then said that they had just finished cooking and invited them to come eat with them. Na-yeon and Jong-hack's eyes lit up when they heard that. They certainly did not refuse and thanked them. After that, they then began preparations for the big cook. Seeing Hajin, who had only grilled the meat, Jong-hack then said to him that he should also eat. Hearing that, Hajin only said that he could grill and eat the meat at the same time, but, while Hajin was eating the meat he grilled, his attention was then distracted when he heard someone's laughter there. When Hajin looked in that direction, he then saw Na-yeon and Jong-haack who were sitting with several men. They seemed to be telling something interesting to the two of them. One of the men said that he heard quite a lot about Suk. Apparently, Gangnam was divided between Shin Myungchul and Chai Juchul. Na-yeon looked enthusiastic when listening to the story. Jong-haack was the same. He then asked, what was the public opinion about Shin Myungchul? The middle-aged man chuckled at his question. He said that he was a great person. He brought peace to the entire Gwanak district. Jong-haack smiled proudly when he heard that, but the middle-aged man's words did not stop there. He said that he was still out there, saving many lives. Jong-haack was then shocked at the news, not realizing his change. The middle-aged man continued to tell about Shin Myungchul. He seemed very impressed with him. In times like this, there is no one else like him. The other man also agreed with him. He had seen him fight once, and he was very great. But, while they were talking and admiring Shin Myungchul, Jong-haack suddenly became silent at this time, which was different from his enthusiasm before. He then quietly walked away from there. In contrast to Shin Jong-haack, Na-yeon did not lose her enthusiasm. With an admiring face, she then asked, "Then, what about Chai Juchul?" Hearing that, the middle-aged man told her, "You can't believe it, I once lived for a while in Seoul, and there is something about him that feels slippery like a snake." Na-yeon could only feel surprised and confused to hear that. She then laughed tastelessly in response to his words. As Hajin was grilling the meat and listening to their stories, he was then confused when he saw Shin Jong-haack, who silently walked away from there. He was confused. Why did he react like that when they talked about Shin Myungchul? Shin Jong-hack's character is supposed to revere Shin Myungchul in the story. He wondered, is there a problem with the storyline? Realizing that, Hajin then asked Jong-han to take care of the cooking for a while and immediately ran after Jong-haack. Although Jong-han felt confused, but he then agreed. Shin Jong-haack went into the forest and walked alone there, but he suddenly stopped his steps and sighed, with a somewhat annoyed face. He then asked Hajin why he kept following him. Hajin was surprised to learn that Shin Jong-haack realized that he was stalking him. He then could only scratch the back of his head in shame. He was confused about what to do. He couldn't say that he wanted to protect the original storyline right. Seeing Hajin, who was just silent, Jong-haack annoyedly said that he asked him why. Hajin was immediately stunned to hear that. He then told him that the meat was ready. The environment was suddenly silent after he said that. Hajin himself didn't seem to expect that he would say such an absurd reason. After a moment of silence, Jong-haack then said that he understood. Although it was a bit unexpected, but somehow, he managed to avoid it. Hajin was quite grateful for that, but Hajin suddenly hesitated at this time. Now that he had followed him unceremoniously, should he ask him something first? In the midst of his hesitation, Jong-haack suddenly asked him, "What do you think of Shin Myungchul?" Hajin was then surprised by his sudden question, but he was happy with the question he asked. This question should make him able to read Shin Jong-hack's reaction regarding it. He then answered that he was a hero who saved the world. He was a person who deserved to be admired by everyone. Shin Jong-haack suddenly laughed amused when he heard his answer. He felt that it was an answer that only commoners like him could give. Hajin was confused by his negative reaction. After pondering for a moment, he then said, "But from what I know, Shin Myungchul never cared too much about class differences. But, what Hajin did not expect was, his words turned out to get a strong reaction from Jong-haack. Hajin was shocked to see Jong-haack suddenly come forward and attack him. He could only swear at Jong-haack's fist that was very close to his face and immediately activated bullet time. Hajin was fortunately able to dodge his attack thanks to his reaction speed enhanced by bullet time. He then immediately retreated backwards to open the distance from him. Looking at the small crater created by Jong-haack's fist, Hajin broke out in a cold sweat. If his attack managed to hit him, at least some of his bones would be broken. He knew this must be his unique constitution, where his physical abilities increased based on his anger level. A reddish aura seemed to be enveloping Jong-haack at the moment. Hajin realized that this was Jong-haack's berserker mode. Without saying anything, Jong-haack then attacked him heavily. Seeing the speed of the attacks Jong-haack threw, Hajin realized that he was really angry at the moment. But what made him confused was, why was he reacting this strongly to Jong-haack? Was there a deep reason that he didn't know? While avoiding the attacks that Jong-haack threw, Hajin then asked him to calm down, but Jong-haack angrily said that people like him were always the problem. If people like him were not that weak and always needed others to protect, then his grandfather did not need to sacrifice himself. If he did not sacrifice himself, he would still be here with them. Hajin was surprised to hear his outburst. He now finally knew why Jong-haack reacted like that. When Hajin's attention was distracted by his words just now, Jong-haack then threw a fist at him, but fortunately Hajin was able to react immediately and block his fist. But even though he managed to block the fist he flew, the impact of the attack still made him fly backwards. After repeatedly throwing his attacks at him, Jong-haack's anger seemed to subside somewhat, which made him not continue to attack Hajin. But, Hajin then said to him, "Even so, I don't think Jong-haack ever regretted his decision." His words reignited Jong-haack's anger. He angrily asked him, "What do you know?" Hajin's face was very calm when facing his anger. He then replied, "Isn't he protecting his family? Isn't it in your heart? You also respect that part of him." His words seemed to surprise Jong-haack, and succeeded in diffusing his anger. After being silent for a moment, he then chuckled and released his grip on his shirt. He felt that he really didn't know when to stop acting up. After finally succeeding in diffusing Jong-haack's anger, Hajin then breathed a sigh of relief. Although his face looked calm earlier, but in fact his heart was beating very fast because of fear. Just before leaving there, Jong-haack then called him and said to him, "If you tell anyone about this, then you will die." Hearing that, Hajin could only feel confused. He could not think of what he was talking about this to anyone. Jong-haack chuckled at his answer. He also realized that he said that just in case. After that, Jong-haack then walked away from there and returned to the camp. After finally clearing up his confusion, Hajin breathed a sigh of relief because it turned out that nothing serious had happened. He did not expect Jong-haack to miss Jong-haack so much. He was not a character who was born evil, but even though he created his character, but Hajin now realized that there were still many things he didn't know about him. While Hajin was thinking about it, he was then surprised when he heard a notification from his smartwatch. And when he opened his smartwatch, he was then surprised by the message that appeared. "You do not have the authority to view the storyline change of Jong-haack." Hajin was surprised to read that Jong-haack's character background had changed. He's a core character of this world though. Hajin was really confused about what exactly happened after reading the message, but unfortunately, no one would clear up the confusion that Hajin was currently experiencing.